Hello, everybody, and welcome. We will give it just a second for you to file in or settle in to wherever you are in our virtual room. A nice snack, lunchtime. If you want to put into the chat where you're joining us from, we always love to see that. We know that you're probably in beautiful Monterey County. For those of us in Sacramento, we're a little jealous of your weather. I think it's supposed to get to about 100 today. All right. Again, hello everybody and welcome. This is the Creating a Culture of Professionalism webinar sponsored by the Monterey County Workforce Development Board. My name is Tara Brennan and I'm the events manager here at CEA. And before we start today's webinar, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping details with you. Your audio will be muted, so you won't be able to talk to us, but we do love to hear from you. So if you have any questions pertaining to the presentation or any answers to anything that Jessica might ask, go ahead and put those in the Q&A box. That's in the bar on the lower bar to the left. Jessica will be monitoring that, so she'll be able to see what you guys are all talking about. If you have any technical difficulties, or if for whatever reason you did not receive the handouts that were sent out last night and this morning, go ahead and put your email address into the chat box. That's where I will be, and I'm happy to help you. I'll resend those over to you. There is going to be a quick 10-second survey, so if you wouldn't mind taking that for us, we would really appreciate it. We love to serve you. We're here to serve you, and we want to give you the best information and experience possible on webinars. We're all a little tired of them, but here we are nonetheless. And so with and then just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded, and you will be able to find that on the Monterey County Workforce Development Board's website later in the week. I will post that website for you at the end, so you'll be able to grab that from the chat box. So I think that's all the housekeeping details we need to go through. So now I will go ahead and introduce Jerry Hernandez. He's Management Analyst Business Services with Monterey County Workforce Development Board. Jerry, it is all yours.
Thank you, Tara. I appreciate you introducing me. What I wanted to do is just share with you 3 slides. You're going to be able to receive copies of this. If you want to take a screenshot, you're welcome to do so. The Workforce Board provides services at no charge to Monterey County-based employers. We're recognizing with the lingering effects of the COVID situation, businesses are finding themselves needing resources that will help stabilize, strengthen, and grow their business. So you have 3 categories here: recruitment, training, and other resources. Under the recruitment, we offer job and career fairs, customized recruitments, job boards, and other promotional activities. You want to look at working with us in those contexts to try to attract employees to your businesses, both entry level as well as those that have other skills. We also have the training resources available. If you have an existing employee who's been with you at least 6 months, and you're looking at advancing that individual, we have a program called Incumbent Worker Training Program, and we have grant funds available there. We also have for entry level on the job training. We can also help to offset the training cost associated with that new employee. And then at times, we also see that there are instances where businesses are going out of business and they have to lay off staff. We have resources to work with EDD, provide layoff aversion programs. We want to see if we can work with you first to retain them if possible, or we work with other companies who might be interested in your workforce and transfer them over to them. The last category, resources and other services, we have other resources available. For example, from now to November, if you are a business with 5 or less employees, we have micro business grants of about $2,500 targeted particularly to micro businesses. We have the Human Resource Hotline. I'll be sharing a slide along that next. We have a landing page that shows resources and referrals for businesses that you might find very useful. And then if you do have to lay off your workforce, we do have some ways of assisting in that process as well. I mentioned the Human Resource Hotline. The next slide is going to share with you an 800 number. What's nice about this, a lot of small businesses don't have their own HR manager, but you do have your HR hotline available, which can be a free resource to you. The number that you can use is 888-217-6899. You can literally call daily. And as long as it's if you have a question or concern that you want some assistance with, you can get some information from the California Employers Association. They have experts that can serve as your HR department, if you will. So again, as long as you are a Monterey County-based employer company, then you can go ahead and call this at no charge. So let me give you my contact information as the final slide. Again, my name is Jerry Hernandez. My phone number there, 831-755-5393. My email address and website will also be provided to you in the chat by Tara. So I just wanted to, again, thank you for being here. We enjoy having these webinars in conjunction with the California Employers Association. And now I'd like to turn over the stage to Tara. Thank you.
Awesome, Jerry. Thank you so much. We really enjoy working with you and the Monterey Workforce Development Board. We always love everybody that shows up and participates. So we're looking forward to this. So without any further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce two of my counterparts today. Today we have Director of Member Services, Natalie Jimenez, will be here lurking around in the background. And our presenter today is Jessica Mirabile. She is one of our recruiters, trainers, coaches, all around great gal. So Jessica, with all that said and done, it's all yours.
Thank you, Tara, and welcome everyone. We are so excited, as Tara says, to be working with Monterey County and Jerry and his team, and having had the privilege of working with many workforce development boards throughout California. They are such a great resource, and I can't praise them enough for all the work they do for California employers. And take advantage of what they can offer for you too as employers, and use them and use the hotline. I have to say, having HR subject matter experts at your beck and call. If you have a question, call the number. We've got people who have been in human resources for many, many years, very, very experienced, very knowledgeable. And if they can put your mind to rest on an issue, let them do it for us. So please use us and use that hotline that's provided by Monterey County and Jerry's team. So with that, let me just touch on very quickly who we are as an organization, California Employers Association. We are a human resources, services, and solutions organizations. We work with employers throughout the state of California and also out-of-state employers who have a presence here in California. For all of us, we know that working and doing business in California can be quite challenging at times. And we really do pride ourselves in supporting our employers so they can focus on their business as we help them with their human resources needs. Additionally, our attorneys make us say we're not attorneys, and whatever we talk about today should not be relied upon as legal advice. If you have a legal issue, we always recommend you connect with your legal experts, your attorneys, and those that support you in that area. We do provide guidance in our presentations and in our discussions with you. With that in mind, what we will be talking about today are things that seem to be coming up more and more as people are returning back to work and as people are starting to go back into the office, and how we're functioning either in a hybrid world, in a remote world, and all of those things that we're seeing. So that what we'll be talking about is workplace respect. It's some of the things that get in our way when it comes to respect and civility. I'm a firm believer, adults do not need to be educated. We just need to be reminded about things that are important. And having come back myself from being in a remote environment for some time, it's going back to some of the basics that we'll talk about also, and some things that you can do in your workplace to create that culture of respect. and how important that can be to your employees and to your organization. Also, professionalism. What does it look like today with 5 generations in the workplace? What does that mean? How does it show up? And of course, understanding just the importance of appreciation and recognition. And we'll spend a little bit of time on that because it can truly help your culture, your organization, and how people feel about your organization in today's world. So some surveys, recent surveys in 2022. What workers are actually saying, over a third feel that the workplace is becoming more disrespectful. So why is that? How does that show up? What does that mean to all of us? You know, more than 2/3 are saying there's a strong need for people to have civility training. You know, it'd be a perfect world if everyone were like us, if they were all just like us and they think like us and they speak like us, but that's not the case. We live in a beautiful, diverse environment here in California, and we all bring our just our compilation of experiences, education, work experience, careers to the workplace. And how do we create that environment where we feel that we're all being seen and heard? Also, 90% of American workers, this is a key number, they feel that they've been victims of uncivility at work. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Some people don't have a clue how they're coming across. They don't think it's being disrespectful or unprofessional. Yet we'll talk about some of those things that do in the real world show up in that light for some of our colleagues that we work with. Also, what it does to us afterwards. The fact that we think about it, we ruminate about it, we worry about it, if we've had an unpleasant incident at work. And how we carry that home, how we carry that with us in some cases for a very long time. And we'll spend a little bit of time on that too. One thing I'd like to encourage you to do is please ask any question you might have, or if you have a situation, or what about this, or what would you do? Feel free to use the Q&A. Chances are, if you have a question, 3 other people will have that same question and they just don't want to ask it. So feel free. I prefer, as you have the question, just jump right in, put it in the Q&A. Happy to stop, answer that question for you. And the reason I recommend that is, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll have a brilliant question and I'll forget it by the time I get to the end of a presentation. So you will not bother me in the least if you ask the question while we're going through the presentation. Tara will be monitoring the chat box. I will be monitoring the Q&A box. So when we think about respect, and I'd like to ask all of you if you would just take a moment and just put it into the Q&A, what respect means to you. How does it show up to you today in the workplace? And it may show up in quite a few different ways. What's the most important area that it shows up for you in the workplace today? And as you take a moment to put that into the box, I'll share with you one of the things that makes a very, very big difference for me when I'm in the workplace and I'm engaging with people is people being in the moment, being present and fully engaged in that conversation with me or with our team. And yes, one of our folks here is saying the ability to listen. We're going to spend some time on that. It's getting harder and harder for us to listen, and feeling that we're being heard also. I don't want to just be wasting energy. I want to know that I'm actually, people are listening to what I have to share. And of course, the being present, which I hear so much as I do leadership training, staff training, people tell me that over and over again. And then trust is a big one for one of our attendees too. When people trust what you say, they believe in you. And it's a great place when you can work with folks and you have each other's back. That's respect. You can get so much done when that happens. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Let's take a look also at what it means to just the general term about respect. It's defined as consideration for ourselves and also for others. It also includes consideration for people's privacy, their physical space, and of course their belongings. And when we spend time working with companies and and folks around communications. And we talk about, how far do I go when I'm speaking with someone? We all know those folks that we get to work with who are open books, right? They'll tell you anything and everything about their lives, and sometimes stuff that may be too much information, versus there are other people who hold that information close to the vest. And making sure that as we communicate with those folks, that we pay attention to those cues, the clues that they give us. And are we going too far if we're asking too many questions? I used to have a boss, and I still smile when I think about him, but he had the energy of 20 people. And when you would meet him, he would have 10 questions for you before you had a chance to even answer the first question he asked. And sometimes he did not pick up on those cues and clues that hold on there, give me a minute to just say hello to you and kind of, know you a little bit. And of course, physical space, not getting too close to people when we are together in person. And we're finding now too that people are more and more anxious about that. Some of it's because of the pandemic. Some of it is just anxiety coming back to work. And of course, people's belongings, don't touch my stuff, or don't mess up my desk, or don't pilfer around my desk, things like that, which we know. And then also a really big one, and especially in the world that we're living in today, where we're seeing extremes on one area, from one side to another. And how do we continue to maintain that level of respect with others who have clearly different viewpoints, and how they're not afraid to share it with us, whether we want to hear it or not. We're finding a lot of conversations in the workplace today about things that really we shouldn't talk about in the workplace, because most people find it very difficult to have a calm and productive conversation about those areas. Let's take a look. I have a comment here. Okay, so we have one of our attendees who's sharing, we have several employees who are so disrespectful and uncivil when talking to their managers and human resources. They do not believe they are being disrespectful. They believe they're standing up for themselves. Yeah, and that's part of the generational differences, and that's part of people, what they bring to the workplace. In some cases, people are bringing their behaviors that were okay in their workplace. They were okay in their past workplace. They're not okay here in where they're working now. And part of that, we're sharing and we're discussing and we're helping leaders bring it back to the basics. Let's start talking about this, because boundaries, everyone has their own communication boundaries. We have our own boundaries of what we will allow and what we won't allow. And many times with some of our generations, because people are so outspoken or they've been encouraged to use their voice, they think that what works for some things works for everything. So we're hearing that quite a bit too, and you're not alone. And hopefully some of the things I'll share with you today will be helpful in that area. And this is so important, because there's not one person in this world that doesn't deserve respect. We all deserve respect. And many times leaders who have the privilege of leading others don't realize they are setting the tone. If we aren't setting the tone as leaders, we're pretty much, letting people know that they can run amok, if you will. And what I mean by that is that as leaders, we're being watched all of the time. We're on stage all of the time. It's just the role that we play. It's part of that mantle of responsibility of being a leader. And knowing that we are being watched all of the time, we are showing, we are teaching, we are demonstrating how people should be treated. And I would venture to say, and I challenge all of you, and I hope you would agree, that I've learned as much from my not as effective leaders as I've learned from my really, really good leaders. I've learned how not to treat people from those leaders that weren't very effective. And I've grown in leadership. We're never done as a leader. So if you're a leader and think you're done, even after 20 years in leadership, trust me, we're not. Our world continues to evolve. Our workplace continues to evolve. And the generations bring their experiences, which are very different than other generations, to the workplace. So we're always growing. And so that first order of business is, as leaders, we do set the tone on how we treat one another, how we treat our peers, how we treat our direct reports across the organization. And our workplace, we want that to reflect that culture of respect. Please, thank you. Those are still important to all of us. Being recognized, acknowledged, being given a choice, not being told what to do. That's all part of respect in the workplace. Having a voice, being heard, that's all part of respect. And many times it depends on the person. I do a lot of coaching also, both at the staff level and executive leadership level. We teach people how to treat us. And when I talk about boundaries, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get further in, keeping in mind that there are times it's okay to tell people that's not okay. That does not work. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's how we do it that's important. But we have to have respect for us. And many of us try to be everything to everybody. And then we get burned out, we get exhausted. So having respect for what's important to you also, and having those values and staying true to your values on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And then of course, it isn't respect when people, make demeaning comments, negative comments about someone's ability, their competency, their skills, and making sure that as we, spend time with people, how are we communicating with people? Are we doing it in a way that we are being respectful to them? Because that's how we're going to earn their respect too. Back to people bring all of their experiences to the workplace, and if they've been led to believe it's okay to behave a certain way, sometimes you have to level set people when they come into your organization and have those conversations. So why is it important for employers to care about respect in the workplace? Because of trust. All of us who work on teams, we know the absolute foundation of an effective team is having trust, is being able to work with a team where I look forward to working with my team. I look forward to doing projects with my team. I look forward to engaging with them because I trust them and they trust me. And we support one another, we take care of one another, and respect is so important to that level of trust. Also, when it comes to engagement, how people feel about work. Are they committed to the success of the organization? Do they find purpose in the work that they do? Are they loyal to your customers? Do they follow you as a leader? When you have that respect, it does have an impact on morale and that overall engagement for an employee. Also, the beauty of having respect in the workplace is you get feedback. You hear things as a leader, as a teammate that you wouldn't normally hear if people don't trust each other, if they don't respect each other. It encourages people to speak their voice. If something doesn't feel right or if something needs to change, it's okay to do that in that type of a workplace where people are respected for what they bring to the workplace. Higher productivity, who doesn't love that, right? And overall, it just improves the environment. And we all want to work for a company that we feel good about, that we're proud to work for them because we are ambassadors of our organization. And that all ties to what that culture is like, and is there respect in that culture, and is it even talked about? I know a lot of employers have shared with me that they worry about a hybrid world because they worry about losing their culture. So we'll spend a little bit of time about how you can maintain that in a hybrid world if you find you're experiencing that, or a remote world. And why should employees care about this? Because they feel better at work. They're more secure. They look forward to going to work. And stress, we have enough of it as it is in today's world. And I feel better at work and I feel better at home. We all know that when we're not being respected at work or feeling that respect at work, we take it home with us. We all have. We're humans. We're not robots yet. And of course, who doesn't want to work in a positive work environment? We all do. And then of course, we all have a need as humans and workers to be connected to people, to feel that connection. And especially for those of you who may be working remotely or hybrid, because we don't get to see our colleagues as often as we'd like. You know, some of us only see them once every few months now. Whereas in the past, we were seeing them daily. So here's the downside if we don't have respect in the workplace. And that's why we encourage employers to make this part of your culture, to create the conversation around this. These are the costs. There's tangible costs and there's the intangible costs. And I'm not going to touch on every one of these. One of the things that we do when we give you handouts is we give you a lot of information because we want you to have a chance to go back and look at this and just remind yourselves of maybe some of the things that we talked about. But as you take a look at these two columns, these are substantial to any organization. What a difference they can make. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of them that I'm hearing a lot about and I'm seeing also in the work that I do. One of the things that I'm hearing is employee retention. Is people, today's workers are telling us they want to work for a manager who demonstrates empathy, that allows me as an employee to speak what's on my mind, and also that you put yourself in my place and try to look at it from my perspective so I feel seen and heard. And employee turnover right now is getting to be a real challenge for many employers in California because there's more jobs than people right now. And workers, especially the talented ones, have quite a few choices. It's easing up a little bit, but as the recruiting director for California Employers Association, I hear from employers all of the time about some of the struggles they're having in trying to replace people that have left the company. So keep your good people, and you want to do everything you can to maintain that stability in your workforce. And then you take a look at the intangible costs, and we've all been there. We have all been there for companies we've worked for before. We can feel it. We know it. We know when morale's not good, when the vibes are bad. We've all been there. And I would venture to say that we've all been less productive when we're in that type of an environment. Because if we don't have an environment that we feel is transparent, that we have clarity about our direction and how our company's doing, we all make up stories in our own mind about what's happening. Some of the barriers to respect, it's just some of the things that we just know, but the gossip, that gossip mill can really be destructive when it comes to respect. And then as you go on down this list, and some people, they don't realize that they're coming across this way. Some people don't realize that when I just, when I tell somebody to do something, because that's how it was in my past life or my past job, that's inconsiderate. No one likes to be told what to do. Even though I may be your boss and I may say, could we please take care of this by next week? I'm still doing it in a way that I'm respecting that person versus saying, get this done by next week. Condescension, how we speak to people, the tone of our voice. If we're frustrated, if we're annoyed with someone, we need to check ourselves first before we have a conversation with someone. Isolating people, we all need that connection, as I talked about before. And rude and vulgar, it varies, folks. It varies between generations on what's okay. And you all know this. I know you do. You've heard this before, but it does vary. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do with the 5 generations in the workplace is, rather than be offended, ask someone, what do you mean by that? Some of the words we hear with some of our generations, and for other generations, those aren't good words. Yet to them, it means something that's not bad. So taking a moment and just ask, I've never heard that used that way before. What does that mean to you? What does that mean, in today's world? You may be surprised. I always recommend reverse mentoring. We can learn as much from our younger workers, and they can learn just as much from our more mature workers. So that reverse mentoring and being open to that can go a long way. So we have a question here. What is the best way to manage gossip in the workplace? And I welcome any of you to put your comments in there if you have tips for this question. We'd love to hear your perspective. Gossip in the workplace, it truly does depend on what the situation is. Many times in my leadership roles, when I see, you just get a sense as a leader, or it becomes part, you're aware of it. I used to like to nip it in the bud. I would bring those people in and say, these are some of the things I'm hearing in the workplace, and they're not sounding good. I don't know if 10% is true, 50% is true, 100% is true, but this is how it's coming across, and this is what it's doing to our workplace and to our team. So let's get this out on the table. If there's something we need to talk about, let's talk about it. I have found in the past, confronting it, getting in front of it is all it is starting to, when you put light on something, it diminishes. And it could be something as a simple comment, or it could be ongoing gossip. And I've held people accountable for that too. So I'm speaking to those who are leading people right now. And even if you're on a team and you're an informal leader on your team, being transparent, being clear, getting in front of those issues can be very powerful for you in a good way when you influence others. Because if you don't, gossip tends to be something that can get bigger and bigger, and it hurts people. And talking about the good things about your culture. Hey, we work in a culture where we respect each other, we appreciate each other, we get great results. We honor what each of us brings to the table, and this kind of stuff gets in the way. So if you have an issue with someone, bring it to their attention, or bring it to my attention as your leader. Yet talking about it and not doing anything about it is a waste of time, energy, and it's hurtful. So I hope that gives you some speaking points as you do have those conversations, but I do hold people accountable for that. And I let them know that it's not acceptable, and I will hold them accountable if they continue to do damage to our culture. So other things to think about, bullying, and that, we all have to go through harassment training, so we know that that's not acceptable in the workplace and can really cause some issues for employers. Yet sometimes people don't even know that they're bullying. They could just be very persistent people, but they cross that line. And calling people on it and say, whoa, hold on there a minute, stop. What you're doing is not okay. You're getting really pushy, and I'm really feeling that pressure. When you work in a team or on a team or with people you trust, it's okay to have those conversations. And you can even laugh about them sometimes. Yet sometimes people, when they're serious, we need to pull them aside and have conversations with them. And get your HR people involved too. If you feel you're in that kind of an environment, call the hotline. We can walk you through that. Some of us have louder voices than others, yet that can come across as being disrespectful. I used to work for someone who thought that if he talked louder, I would understand what he was saying. And that wasn't the case. So being mindful of the tone of our voice, and then of course, treating people differently. Everyone deserves to be treated. Equality is important. Diversity, equity, inclusion, equality, belonging, all of those pieces are important for all of us. And here's some additional barriers. We've all probably experienced these at one point or another. So just sharing those with you. Again, sometimes people, the way they're wired, they don't realize how they're coming across. And we can help them with that in how we coach our folks that we get to work with. Also, I thought this was interesting, just to tie it in beautifully to our conversations today, that August, this month, is actually National Civility Month, and it was founded just to remind people how we want to be treated, with kindness, with empathy, with respect. And if we've ever needed civility and respect in the workplace, holy cow, we need it today. People are experiencing higher levels of stress than ever before. We're hearing about it, we're reading about it. 90% of employers today are very much aware of wellness and how important it is to being successful in business, and how people are feeling and how they're coming into work and how they're feeling. We have a lot of things that are being thrown at us as a society. So keeping that in mind too, taking people as we find them. We're not all in a perfectly calm state these days. And the beauty of it is it costs nothing. Civility costs nothing, but it buys us everything. And think about those people that you've worked with over the years that you would do anything for because of how they treated you, how they treat you today. And you just know and you feel that you are important to them. And civility, as we think about civility, it's truly about self-awareness and social awareness. You may have heard the term emotional intelligence. It's continuing to become more and more prevalent because it is about self-awareness and social awareness. How do first of all, am I aware of my own feelings, and how am I managing my feelings? If I'm being triggered by something, am I able to manage myself so I still come across as a professional? I don't get led by my emotions, which usually doesn't lead to a good place. And the important thing also, as we think about this, is when we're working with someone who may be highly emotional, we have to give them that space, because you can't get to rational until you can work with that emotional piece. Some people try to get past the emotional when people are really triggered and try to get rational. And the worst thing you can tell someone who's highly emotional is would you just be calm? That's one of the worst things you can tell them. So we have to work with that, and being aware of that as leaders and as teammates, colleagues, so important. So that's the self-awareness. The social awareness is picking up on people's cues and clues, that energy that they're bringing, and how am I managing that in my relationships? If someone's coming to me and I can tell they're really, really angry, I need to take a moment and ask them, are you okay? Is everything okay? Tell me what's going on. That's where the empathy comes in, helping to see something from someone else's point of view. So that's all part of civility also, and it comes with that territory. Here's some examples of incivility, and some of us do it because that's how we were taught to deal with conflict also. One of them is silent treatment. Maybe I think it's okay to ignore somebody. Maybe I think it's okay to only talk to somebody when I have something to say, and not even, take some time and say, good morning, how are you doing? But just only as I need to around work. We've talked about gossip enough. Comments or gestures. Again, 5 generations in the workplace, folks. We've all been raised by different sets of parents. We all have different cultures. We all bring some of all of our experiences, both in career and life. So some things may have been okay at one point. It's not okay at our workplace. Accusations, I touched on that about people's confidence. And, a great leader always coaches or chastises in private and recognizes in public. As a leader, as a worker, whoever we are, if I've done something wrong, chances are I'm beating myself up worse than anyone will ever beat me up. But if my boss needs to talk to me about that, I want to make sure they consider a time and a place to do it that's respectful to me. And of course, showing a bad temper, that's getting triggered. That ties into the self-awareness and self-management. If you find yourself getting triggered by something at work, give yourself some space and give yourself some time. Whether you want to have a conversation or you want to do an email or a text, trust me when I say time can be your friend in that case, unless it's a matter of life and death. And then, of course, emotional tirades. These are all examples of incivility, and they're not okay. And when people do them in your workplace, you need to let them know it's not okay. That's not part of the culture that we want to embrace here in our organization. Some of the reasons, people ask me this all the time, why are people disrespectful? What is it? And some of it's a personality trait. Some people are very insecure, and their only way to mask that is to be disrespectful or be out there bold and brash and disrespectful because of insecurities. Others have other issues that they're dealing with. Some don't have a clue. They don't even know that they are being disrespectful. That's where you come in. That's where we have to help them understand that this is the behavior we want to see in the organization. And I'm a firm believer when we're coaching people to, yes, you want to talk about what's happened, yet feed forward, and talking about what you want to see can be much more powerful than don't ever do this again and don't do this, this, and this, versus this is what happened. Let's talk about it in the future. This is what we need to see in your behavior. So talk about what you want to see and do it with as much positive intention as you can, because it'll have a different tone when you're providing feedback to people. And then also some of people's motives for being disrespectful. I'm sure we've all experienced these in the past. And some of you might say, why do you have to be left alone at the very end? I've actually had folks who have told me that the way to just be left alone because they don't like people, they don't want to be around people, is to be just so disrespectful that people don't even want to engage with them. Sad but true. But there are a lot of reasons. So part of that for us is to have those conversations with our folks when they are showing up in that way. So etiquette in the workplace, how do we behave? Professionalism first and foremost, and that may mean different things to different people. So when people come on board into your organization, do you take the time to talk with them? Do you talk about what that is? We all want to make a good first impression. None of us wants to do poorly. We want to do well. Sometimes we just don't know. Part of it is the language. Here in our organization, we do say please and thank you. We don't use profanity. I've had that come up a lot in some of the trainings that we've done with profanity. Some people use profanity like others use the word the. It's normal for them. So again, we have to help them with that. And then jokes, inappropriate jokes. Also, how do we treat people? What does it say about us? Why is it important? I'm a firm believer, if I can lift somebody up, I'm going to do that. And if we look hard enough, we'll find good in anybody and in most situations. So taking that time, not when you're in the thick of a real issue with someone, but looking for those opportunities to really boost someone's confidence, especially if they're new in a job, new in a project, they're going through a tough time. What can I do to boost their confidence and make them feel good about the work that they're doing? Also, as a leader, being personable and approachable. Back to what I said earlier, we teach people how to treat each other in the workplace by what we do as leaders. Am I approachable? Am I respectful? Do I make myself available? Or do I just say, I have an open door policy, yet when you come into my office, I give you that look like, what do you want? Or I do a heavy sigh like, oh, it's you again. Again, sometimes we don't realize how that comes across, but we want to make sure that we walk our talk and our actions speak very loudly about who we are and how we want people to be treated in our company. And folks, don't forget about humor, good, healthy humor. Laughs are always welcome. So things to maintain that foundation of respect in the workplace. Someone touched on this earlier in one of the comments, and I really appreciate it. Active listening, being present, truly being there. And if I'm talking with someone in person, am I dropping everything else? Am I focused on them? Am I listening? Am I playing back to them what I'm hearing? Am I giving them some verbal cues that I'm with them, nodding my head, saying, yeah, wow. Things like that help people know that you're with them, you're fully engaged. And then also with communications, you picking up on their emotions also by the use of the words they're choosing, the tone. We can tell by their facial expressions many times if people are really tense. So making sure that we're not ignoring those cues. People may come to us and they may be very upset about something that's just happened. The best thing we can do for them at that time is give them a little bit of time and a little bit of space and just be there and say something like, wow, sounds like you really, that doesn't sound good. but acknowledging their emotions, giving them that moment. Sometimes they just need that from us. And transparency, so powerful. The reason I say this about being powerful is that there's a lot of change going on in the workplace right now. You as a leader may not know all of the changes that are going to be happening. We live in an uncertain world. And you may not have everything fully baked yet for what you want to do next on the team or what needs to happen in the company. So it's okay for you to let your folks know, here's what I know today. Here's for sure it's going to be happening. These other things, I don't know yet. They're still, we're still formulating what the best thing to do is. So as soon as I can tell you, I will tell you. People respect that. It will also save on productivity because they won't be gossiping about it and wondering. We tend to write our own stories if we don't know what's going on at work, and our stories are usually not really good and they impact our productivity. So be as transparent as you can. This is one of my 5 favorite slides because I have to be reminded too, and I teach this stuff about listening and how important it is. And as we think about different levels of listening, there are some people we ignore. I'm the first to admit it. When my 2-year-old would be asking for the same thing over and over again, and I'd already answered it 10 times, or they'd ask me why 22 times, I would start to just ignore it because I've already been there, done that. Selective listening, when we are only listening to hear for what information we need. Pretend listening, this will get you in trouble time and time again. We tend to do it with those that we know really well, that we're very close to. Being married to an engineer for many years, I would ask a question, something like, what time is it? And he would tell me how the watch is built. I just want to know the fact. I just want to know an answer to my question. I don't want all these other facts that don't mean anything to me. And so I pretend listen. And then you get that dreaded question, what do you think about what I've just said? Then you're in trouble. So be mindful of that pretend listening. Attentive listening is being present, paying attention. My focus is on you. I'm not multitasking. And then, of course, the empathetic listening, which is the highest level of listening that you can have. And I'm happy to let many of you know, some of you are naturally talented in that. On the other side of this, some of us have to really work at it. It's considered a talent through StrengthsFinders with Gallup. Empathy is considered a talent. So some of you may already know, I'm really good at that. I can automatically look at something from someone's point of view. Whereas others of us think, well, this is how I would handle it from my point of view, and we don't even consider other people's point of view. So for those of you who are naturally talented at that, keep doing that. That's the most powerful level of listening. For those of us who have to work at it, being aware of it is so important. And one thing that's helped me over the years too, both as a leader, as a colleague, as a partner, is to, if someone comes to me to talk about something, I will ask them, do you want me just to listen, or do you want me to listen to solve your problem? Because as a problem solver, I want to solve it and move on to the next thing. So I ask people, do you just need someone to listen? Because that's a whole different level of listening than if you want me to solve your problem. So that's helped me. You may have other things that help you if you're not as skilled with empathy as others are. Respect in the digital world. Oh my goodness. Oh, so much of our communication now is in the digital world. And as we think of some of the challenges that we're facing, and we're going to continue to face them, these aren't going to go away, is that we're not seeing people face to face. When I'm communicating with someone, I can see their body, I can see their gestures, I can see their face, I can pick up on the tiniest of clues and cues, I can feel energy, right? When I'm on doing email or on virtual, I can't pick up as much. Plus, the other thing that we're finding, folks, and it's not getting better, is we have shorter attention spans. You're going to laugh, but it's true. We have less attention spans as humans than goldfish do. They have an attention span of 8 seconds. We're at 7 seconds as human beings because there's so many monkeys jumping in our heads at any given time, so many distractions. So we know that if we're communicating with someone, if we're on a call, if we're virtual with them, if we're emailing them, we have to be very mindful that an in-person is not possible and we're going to miss some things. So we have to be extra specially mindful of how we communicate digitally. And lastly, we're all overloaded with information. We need to take a break from some of this information overload that's available to us in this right now world that we live in. So here's a tip for you, something to refer to as you take a look at your handouts also, is making sure that you use that best tool for your communications. I'm not going to go through every single one of these for time's sake, but what I would like to mention, though, that hopefully will save you some pain in the future, is if you have anything that has a potential for controversy, a potential for conflict, I highly recommend don't go onto an email thread that's going to take forever. People are not going to appreciate it, or a text. Pick up the phone, go see someone, or do a Zoom call with them. It will save you pain, because I still see it far too often, and I hear about it far too often, where people are not taking the time or not paying attention to that conflict or that controversy, and knowing that I can go back and forth with 30 emails, you're still not going to get it solved. When a phone call can work very, very effectively, or virtual can work very well for you. And the best one always is a face-to-face if you have that opportunity. Virtual communication, we're going to continue to see that. It does provide some challenges. Well, we can't do it today. If you are on a virtual call, I always encourage you, try to be on camera if you can, because people feel connected to you if they can see you on a virtual call. It's really important to people. Plus, it also communicates confidence with technology. I just wish I would have bought Zoom back in 2020 when it became when it exploded, because it's so useful in today's workplace. I wish I would have bought some stock in Zoom. We'd have a lot more money today if we all had, but who knew? It also allows you on the visual, you can pick up some things. You can see if people are getting it, or if you can see if they have a puzzled look on their face. It improves engagement. If you can do Zoom meetings versus a phone conference, it can be very effective for you also. And then also our auditory recognition, again, back to phones, it's not as good as our visual recognition, because we pick up a lot of things on a Zoom call. So again, if you have that opportunity, if you find you're doing Zooms a lot, and many of us, yes, we are Zoomed out, having your camera will hopefully make you feel more engaged, and it'll certainly help people on the other side feel connected, engaged with you too. So thinking about the ladder of influence, we all want to be influential as leaders. We want to be influential as colleagues inside and outside of our organization. So some things to think about is letting people know, I've heard you, I get it. Got it, I understand. Letting them know that you're really paying attention to what they're saying. Showing that you appreciate their point of view. I can see why that would make sense for you, or now I understand why you might feel that way about this. Also reaching that point of understanding and appreciating where they're coming from. Again, people tell me time and time again, I'm not seen, I'm not heard, my opinion doesn't matter. That is so important in today's workplace. And it's okay to disagree. You don't have to agree with everything. Step number 4, don't think that you've lost because you didn't reach agreement. It is okay to disagree. It's not okay to disrespect. So even saying, let's just agree to disagree. It's okay. I'm good with it. I understand where you're coming from. And let's just agree that we're not going to have a complete meeting of the minds here. You can still do that and be respectful. Having that dynamic dialogue, having a good conversation about something and still being okay is a sign of a very strong team and trust in the relationship. We were just in a conversation yesterday in a meeting, and the facilitator said, it's great how they were talking about our team, how you're able to have these conversations where you have these, you don't agree, and still be okay. And I said, well, we teach this. We should be able to know how to do it. We have to be able to do it too. Our actions, speak volumes. So it's a skill. You can get there, and you can teach your folks how to get there too. So again, when you think about that ladder of influence, all of these things come to mind, excuse me. I want to touch just bridging that gap amongst the generations. Again, thinking about inclusion in the workplace, making sure people are heard. When we think about diversity and inclusion, so here's a way to think about it. Diversity is saying we welcome all diverse thoughts, experiences, educations. We welcome that in our company. So diversity is like being invited to a dance. Inclusion is being asked to dance. So as we think about that for our teams, and we do create that inclusive environment, paying attention if someone's not engaged or not feeling free to offer their opinions, finding ways to bring them into the fold of those conversations, and valuing the differences. I mean, I love working with people who've come from all backgrounds and experiences. My gosh, the level of creativity and innovation is incredible. And creating that safe space for people to voice their concerns. It's okay, and calling it out. If someone brings up a concern in a respectful and valid way, say, thank you for bringing that up. That's important. We should talk about that. Making it okay to do that in your workplace. And of course, these are all the great benefits to being able to do all of these things. And it upskills us too. When I mentioned earlier, we're never done as leaders, we aren't, but it helps us with our skills also. And then we've all heard of the golden rule, right? Treat others the way they wish to be treated. Well, in today's world, it's the platinum rule. We want to treat others the way they want to be treated. And we do that by getting to know the people we work with, asking them what's important to them, listening to what they say, and working with them and treating them the way they wish to be treated. I want to touch briefly on appreciation and recognition. We don't get enough of it. We all crave it as human beings. And just asking all of you, as we think about professionalism, respect, civility in the workplace, are we taking that time to have those celebrations when we do great things, recognizing, appreciating the people that we're privileged to lead or that we get to work with? Gallup has done tremendous research and studies on this, and they say we as human beings, we need to be appreciated every 7 days. And I'm not talking about, parades, balloons, dancing clowns. I'm talking about sometimes a simple thank you, an acknowledgement that you knew what I did and I did a great job. So keeping that in mind too is important. Back to, we show people the kind of workplace that we want as leaders. And are we paying attention to those important things, recognizing and appreciating those folks we get to work with? And then, of course, a little bit of humor. I always say I take my job very seriously, not myself so much. Life's too short. When all else fails, everything we ever needed to know, we learned in kindergarten. So back to some fun basics that we should know, right? We don't want to hit people. We want to play fair. And we don't take things that aren't ours, things that we can chuckle about. With that, I challenge all of you, what's one thing you'll do differently starting tomorrow in your company? And asking yourself why that's important. What's the benefit to doing that? And how will you measure your success in that area? And I leave you with, awareness is 50% of anything. When we commit to something and we're aware of it, we find those opportunities to continue to create that workplace that we want to work in and that our folks want to work in also. So with that in mind, any questions on anything at all that I talked about today, happy to take them. We have a few minutes. Feel free to put them in the Q&A. And then also I'll bring back Tara, but still open for questions if you have anything. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. I've really enjoyed it, and turning it back over to Tara.
Awesome, Jessica. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for participating. It's always so much fun to have actual participation in the Q&A. Even though we can't hear you or see you, you're there. We know it. So that's lovely. Thank you. Right now, I'm going to put in a bunch of information for you. So let's start out with the continuing education codes. If you are looking for those, I've got the HRCI and the SHRM code. I'm putting that in the chat right now, so you can grab those. I'll read those off to you as well. The HRCI is 599762, and SHRM is 22-CD. M as in Mary, P as in Paul, R as in Robert. So there's that. I'm going to put Jerry's contact information in here now. So if you have any questions, you can get a hold of Jerry directly. I'm going to put your HR hotline in here. So please utilize that. It's a free resource that the Monterey County Workforce Development Board is providing for you. We're here to answer all of your questions. So please use that. And the last but not least is the website address that you will be able to get this webinar, the recording of this webinar on that website in a couple of days. It's got to be uploaded and all that good stuff. So that's a lot of information. So if you got any questions, throw them in the chat real quick. Otherwise, Jerry, do you have any last words you'd like to say?
No, I just wanted to mention how enjoyable I found the webinar today. A lot of good information. And thank you all for joining us. And we look forward to the next webinar.
Yes, thank you, Jerry. Like I said before, we really enjoy working with all of you. So we look forward to that as well. Everybody go and enjoy your lovely weather down in Monterey County, and be healthy. And we'll see you very soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.